Hello and welcome to Risk Chats with AFERM. I'm your host, Paul Marshall. Today's podcast was recorded back in July at the HEA PDT in New Orleans with Yashika Rahaman from FDA, who was there for ERM panel, so we had her come into the ad hoc podcast studio and record a little podcast with us for our AFERM audience. So let's harken back to the PDT, and here's Yashika. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today we're happy to have with us Yashika Rahaman from FDA. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Paul. I'm doing fine, thank you.
Great. And we also have Tal as our co-host today.
Having a good time in New Orleans at the AGA conference, enjoying good food and good music.
And good company.
And good company.
That's right. We're all down here at the conference, and I connected with Yashika because you're going to be on a panel on Wednesday. So,
yes, I am.
I'm sure this podcast will be out after that, but hopefully those of you attended got to attend the panel. So why don't we just start off with yourself? Do you mind just giving us a little bit of your background, and what you do at FDA?
Sure. My background, actually, I came from an engineering area. I used to design helicopters for Sikorsky aircraft, and I loved it. And a part of doing that type of work, it's really managing risk. And so I loved it. And prior to designing helicopters, I worked for the USDA as a risk analyst. So risk has been in my blood. And not only have I worked in that area, but I'm also, I have a background, an academic background in that area, reliability engineering as well. So when the opportunity came up at FDA for me to be the director of the agency's enterprise risk management program, I jumped at it. And I'm loving almost every moment of it.
All right, well, let's talk about that opportunity a little bit. How did the ER program get going? What was the impetus? Was there a champion? How did they get buy-in? How did the beginning begin?
Okay, well, the beginning began before me. But from what I've heard, it was really initiated by A123. So back in the spring of 2016, our agency embarked on really implementing this program in some form. But we formally established this program in earnest, I would say, the fall of 2017 when I took over. But there was a lot of work done from spring of 2016 up until that point, and that began with a group where they first established they tried to establish the enterprise risk profile for the agency. And this was done out of the project management office within the Chief Operating Officer's organization. And they began this Herculean project where it was a small team of folks. They interviewed the agency senior leaders, some key stakeholders, some subject matter experts to identify what are the true enterprise risks for the agency. And so based on the information that they collected, they prioritized, and then they validated that information, and then they ultimately established the agency's first risk profile. Now this effort, it then migrated the year after that. I would say that the first risk profile for the agency was developed in 2017. Then after that, they migrated the effort to just being an annual update of the risk profile the following year, and that's about when I came on board. So after I came on board in the fall of 2017, with the full support and partnership of both the CFO and the COO, we formally established the FDA Enterprise Risk Management Program. And with that, we created both the vision for the program and some goals. And so the vision for our program is really that enterprise risk management, we partner, and I stress the word partner here because that's something that we do as a program. We partner with FDA leaders and everyday decision makers to really create a culture of strong risk management in the agency to improve FDA's mission performance and protect its reputation and resources. we also establish 3 program goals, which are relatively simple. We like to keep it simple. So they're 1, to address old risk, 2, to identify new risk, and 3rd, to change risk culture. And so following the establishment of the vision and the goals and the objectives for the program, we also worked out a number of work streams that we thought were important in really standing up and maintaining a good enterprise risk management program. And after we did that, we then focused on executive leadership buy-in. And for this, we received invaluable support from the CFO. And so what we did, we leveraged his standing relationships with the agency senior leaders, as well as some of the organizational relationships that the FMFIA community had. So we didn't really start from scratch in that. We leveraged what was existing. And we met, and just to note, with the CFO's organization, that's money. Right. So that touches every single senior leader within the agency. So this is a great network to leverage. Immense support from the CFO and his organization. So we met with the senior leaders one-on-one, and it was first to share the A123 expectations for ERM and senior leadership responsibilities and engagement. The second, when we met with the senior leaders on a one-on-one basis, was to really share the ERM's program approach to implementing A123 principles. We also shared the ERM program's plan to engage them in the management of the agency's enterprise risk through an ERM council. And that was an exciting endeavor for us to undertake. And during this process, we obtained their commitment and their buy-in. And when I say that, it's their commitment was demonstrated in who they put on the ERM council. So the way that the FDA is structured, you have the commissioner at the top, and then you have the center directors, and then you have some major offices. You have the office director heads. And they either, in most cases, they either put themselves on the council or they would send their deputies in most cases. And so, they really demonstrated their commitment to enterprise risk management at the agency. In addition to that, we spent time prior to the initial kickoff of the ERM Council to explain to each council member their responsibilities, the expectations, and to gather their feedback and to address any concerns that they may have. And because of that, we're able to successfully kick off the first ERM Council at the agency earlier this year. And we continue to receive great support from the FDA senior leadership as we continue to make progress with this council.
So you're in the CFO office and you've got the council going. Is the internal control function or strategic management, strategic planning function, are those alongside you? Are they connected to you? Are they outside the CFO organization? How does that work?
Okay, so I'll take a couple of those choices.
Yeah.
They're connected to us.
Okay.
They are with us. So they are also within the CFO's shop. Mm-hmm. So how we're structured, and I can elaborate on that a little bit later, but we are, I report directly to the CFO, and the internal control shop, it's within the CFO's organization, but one layer below. So the CFO shop has an acquisition function. It also has a finance function or a financial management function, and also a budget function. So it's within that financial management function that you would find internal controls. So we're certainly connected. They are a part of the council as well, and they have their own executive level committee that we are also members of. So we work hand in hand with each other.
Got a couple more specific questions about the
sure.
organization. Cyber, the CISO, the IT program, which is usually one of the most highest risk programs in any agency, and privacy programs. How do they roll into the council? Do they have their own seat? Does a CIO represent them all? How does that work?
Okay, so they are represented through the COO.
Okay.
So the COO is a co-chair of the council, And the CISO, they are all, and the CIO, they are under the COO. So they're represented there. And whatever information that comes directly from the council, they are certainly aware of it in real time. So
Okay.
they are connected there, but we also, as how this council operates, when there are issues pertaining to IT or cyber that come up within the purview of the CIO or the CISO, they are welcomed to our meeting. So they
Right.
also have a relationship with the council, but not official membership.
Okay, a similar track. First, a little known fact.
Yes.
A11, presentation and execution of the budget, was actually the first OMB circular that laid out enterprise risk management principles and directed agencies to do it. And they said the reason to do this is to improve decision-making on a portfolio basis. And since it's in the circular regarding the budget, everyone would assume that, ERM, in many regards, has fundamentally been about decision-making and budgeting. Because that is where almost all the major decisions of an agency, sooner or later, come home to roost. So here's the question.
Yes.
On strategic planning, performance planning, like the congressional budget justification where they have the performance measures in there, how has this risk language, risk tolerances, and actual risks, how has that, the ERM program joined that, if it has?
Okay. I am happy you asked that one. I would say that A11 has been a blessing to our program
All right.
this year. And because of A11, it has now strengthened our relationship with the budget community within FDA. So for the first time this year, we're actually merging the ERM process with the budget formulation process.
Fantastic.
And
That's
we're
great.
in the process of moving it even further. So we're trying to link it not only to the budget formulation process, but the entire budget development process. So from budget formulation to budget execution. And in the process, the FDA recently stood up the working capital fund. So right now we're working out exactly what that dynamic will look like for the agency. But that's
How
certainly
have
part
the
of our-
programs responded to that? Do they like it? Is it scary because it's changed? Do they say it's the right way to go? When they change the way money is handed out, it creates like a little earthquake of uncertainty of people knowing if they're going to get what they got before.
So it's a mixed bag so far, and this year for us, in terms of the processes and between budget formulation and ERM, is still one that's somewhat in flux. So to a large extent, where we really came in this year is really to tie it into the budget justification.
That is great.
Yes. And so that's something that we asked each of the folks who are requesting funding in the budget this year for their line item is to tie it to one of the enterprise risk. We wanted to see, exactly where that relationship is, and for the most part, the funding requests are tied to a risk on our agency profile, and so the reception that we received, it was one of wanting to know first what ERM is. So we got a number of calls, and we loved every single call, wanting to know, okay, when they were asked to link their budget request to the profile, they wanted to know first what's ERM. And so that gave us a great opportunity to really share a little bit more with them and hopefully prime the pump for greater collaboration in the future. Now, there are others too that are looking at this as a great opportunity to possibly get additional funding. Whether or not that's going to work, that remains to be seen. But they see this as a potential, how we prioritize in the future. For example, if one risk is ranked much higher than the other, will that mean that they're more likely to get funding? So that's something that's still not, we don't have the answer for that at the moment. But that's serving as a great opportunity for some to get additional funding, or they see it as a great opportunity.
Or explain the need for it,
Yes.
more clearly, or the risks.
Yes. And there are others, I would say, that they're accustomed to they whatever functions that they do. They're a core part of the agency's responsibility, and so the funding is expected. And so for them, I believe that perhaps they see this as an extra layer. So for them, it's less. They see less of what's in it for me. So it's a mixed bag, but we're hoping that this will get to be better, and they will see this as a great way to do business moving forward.
And since the budget's what hands out money, it ends up being the piper to which everybody dances.
Well, some may disagree with you that it's handing out money. Some would say that we have to struggle and fight for it.
Well, it's next to the person that's headed out there. Right. I agree, ERM doesn't hand out the money, but when it's part of the process,
Yes.
it adds serious weight to the discussion.
Absolutely. Let me say that once and twice and three times. Absolutely, absolutely.
Great.
It certainly does.
Well, let me ask a little bit about maybe kind of the risk culture or risk. We recently spoke with USAID, and they put out a really excellent risk appetite statement out to the public, actually. Is that something you all have considered going into the risk appetite?
Yes, we certainly consider that. We do not have a risk appetite statement, but we certainly have a plan for one.
Oh, good.
We're at the juncture right now of formulating our approach to developing a risk appetite statement for the agency. So do we do it at the agency level? Do we do it per risk on the profile? Do we do it based on certain categories? So right now there are a lot of things that we're considering exactly, what that approach would look like. So the ERM program itself, we're considering that, and based on what we think would be best for the agency, we're then going to make the proposal to the ERM Council and see where they take it from there. So we understand also that the agency, as an agency, we innately consider our appetite and our tolerance of risk within the work that we do, but we anticipate that there will be some need for communication and training on the concepts of both risk appetite and risk tolerance as we begin to formally document them.
So Yashika, tell us, how does your program actually monitor risks and make sure that things are, activities are happening to help mitigate these risks?
Okay, great. All right, so we monitor risk and the mitigations activities collaboratively through the ERM program, the ERM Council, and also hand in hand with the risk owners. And we recently, within our profile for this year with the ERM Council, we tiered our risk into 3 tiers. So we have the top priority risk for the agency, and right now we have 3, and that are premier, I would say. Then we have the tier 1 and tier 2 risk. So within that top priority risk, those 3 top priority risks for the agency, we are currently working with the risk owners to establish what the appropriate metrics need to be that would enable the ERM Council and other agency leadership to really understand the progress that's being made with the risk. So right now we have some draft metrics that we're looking at, and our next step is to come back to the council to see if this is sufficient. So our process right now is to work with the risk owners, come up with an initial draft metrics, then take it back to the council, have them validate if this makes sense for them and for the rest of the senior leadership. And once we have received their feedback, their adjustments, and their blessings, then we roll forward with it as being the official metrics that will be used to monitor the risk. We also do a lot of check-in with risk owners, and we offer some assistance as well to make progress on their risk. So those are some of the things that we do in the area of monitoring the risk and the mitigation activities for the agency.
As a member of HHS, with department level policy, training, procedures, templates, how integrated is your program with the HHS? Do they allow, specific components to do more standalone, or is it tightly fitted together?
It's, I would say, both.
Both.
In different
Yeah.
ways, and I'll explain what I mean by that. It's hard for me to envision a better partner at the department level. We work hand in hand with HHS. They have tons of resources in which the operating divisions like FDA and others can utilize to make progress within their program. So you name it. Within every single area of the risk management process, they have tools that are available, and they constantly promote that. So we're well aware. I don't think anyone within the department can say they're not aware of what we have available. And any support that we need, we have it from the department. And recently, the head of that program basically told me, whatever they have, I can take HHS off its stamp, FDA, call it my own.
Great.
And so it's that type of relationship. But at the same time, they've given us enough autonomy where we can freely work within our own operating divisions and staff divs to identify the risk that are prevalent within our organizations without any fear of Big Brother
Right.
watching you, so to speak. So it's really, they give us that autonomy, that freedom where we can really do an honest assessment
Good.
of what's going on within our organizations.
Does your profile risks roll up to departmental risks and are included with them, or does the department have like a different layer of their own departmental profile risks?
They have a different layer.
Okay.
They'd have a different layer, yes. But there are some, they're, without saying exactly what they are, there are certainly commonalities between what are the top priority risks for the agency and what are also the top risks at the department level.
Okay, understood. Well, I think just one more question for you. I think you had mentioned, we'd spoken before, some things that you were doing to help with the operations side at FDA with the risk management program. Do you mind give us a little insight into that?
Yes, certainly. So we take every opportunity that we can to really support our risk owners. So some of the things that we work with them on, it's to develop risk response plans to manage the enterprise risk. So right now, our top priority risks, they're more in the operations space. And we have been working hand in hand with each of the risk owners to work on their risk response plans. And one risk owner in particular, we have worked with not only to develop the plan, but also the implementation of the activities that were generated within that plan. So for us, we're looking at a cradle to grave kind of support when working with our risk owners, especially in the top tier. If it's so important to the agency, it's certainly even more so important to the ERM program that we do all that we can to support them.
Well, that's great. Well, really appreciate your time here today at the conference, taking a moment out from the sessions to join our podcast. So thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for the invite.
Yeah, great risk chat.
That's our show. Thanks for tuning in. Check us out at AFERM.org. See all our podcasts. And look forward to the AFERM Summit this year in October. We'll be recording a couple podcasts there as well. And get those out soon so y'all can check them out. Until next time, this is Paul Marshall signing off for Risk Chats with AFERM.